Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh my gosh, I got so many things I want to talk to Potter about. I don't even know where to start. Seriously, we got so. I mean, really,
because the past couple weeks I've been here, it's been a little. I hope you got something.
Right, I got nothing. What do you got? It's been sparse.
Yes.
Slim pickings, as they say.
As they do say.
Can you picture Slim Pickens in your head when I say that?
The country musician?
Yeah, and
yes,
actor.
Vaguely.
Wasn't he an actor too? Yeah.
Yeah, was he the guy
who was the guy riding the
bomb down in Doctor Strangelove? Woo!
Exactly. I wonder what his real name was.
That might have been it for all I know.
I don't think.
Hey, my father grew up with a kid named General Allen Pancake, so people are capable of doing anything to their kids.
What are you going to do with a name like Pancake?
Well, this is the whole thing. His parents thought that he had such a silly last name that if they came up with an extra distinguished first name, that it would sort of balance it out.
Well, there's nothing you can do with Pancake.
In fact, my father tells this story. It's a good one. He says, by the time he graduated high school, General Allen Pancake had pretty much kicked the ass of every kid in his high school.
Yeah,
because when your name is General Allen Pancake, you learn how to fight. Sort of the boy named Sue.
God.
Effect.
Wouldn't you, if your name was Pancake, wouldn't somebody in the family even, and you know, begging the apologies of all former pancakes, wouldn't you say, hey, guys, we can't do this anymore. It's too hard for the kids. And just change it to whatever.
Yeah.
Panky. Waffle. And then you can name your kid Hanky.
Hanky. Yeah.
All right. I don't know. But
hey, your name's Potter. High school ain't easy for you either.
I suppose Potter's not easy
either.
So,
Pothead. Did you smoke some pot last night or what?
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, that's fun.
Man, that's clever. Well, again, I have so much. It's going to be one of those days.
Yeah, I'm just sort of reacting to my adolescence again. Go ahead.
Okay. So before we start, and because we've already introduced a silly subject, although it's not silly to the pancakes of.
Yes, that's right.
Right. I do want to quickly do what all the others are really actually pretty serious. But,
okay.
Yeah. Okay. But this came to my attention.
All right.
Actually, from the Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
It involves happenings in my home state.
Okay.
It always interests me when I see Wisconsin. And it's one of the graphics is of a radar screen from last Sunday. And it shows a storm definitely moving into the area of La Crosse, Wisconsin, sort of on the border of Minnesota and Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look like a bad storm. There's not that red and purple stuff, but there's the green and yellow. Guess what?
It looked like the face of Jesus.
That's a good guess.
That was just a shot, yeah.
But the thing is, there was no storm. There was there was no rain. The sun was out, as any radar nut in La Crosse who happened to be checking thought, wow, how could that be? Where's that thing come? You know what it was?
A Sharknado. It's just a... Was I right?
You don't have to laugh.
Go ahead. Okay. It was
a swarm of insects.
Oh, was it mayflies?
Yeah!
I had heard something about this.
Heard that.
Yeah.
Ooh, listen. it darkened the sky. I mean, it was mayflies from here to here. You know, they now have the 3D radar if they want to show how. I mean, gazillions of mayflies. Turns out, mayflies, the adult, has a very short life.
Yes.
Right. They, in their...
And they wanted to see La Crosse, Wisconsin before it was over. Must get to... Town's got a lot of buzz.
All right.
He's on fire today.
Mayflies don't buzz.
I just...
You ever been around a
Come on,
mayfly?
it was an insect reference.
All right.
Come on, cut me some slack. Also, they're doing this in July. They're mayflies, for God's sake.
Well, a little late. I mean, and it's interesting because their only function as adults is to disperse, which they don't seem to have done very well.
Yes, yeah.
If they're
Yeah.
on radar.
Yeah.
Is to disperse and mate
Yeah.
and die. Well, the females have to lay the eggs, and then they lay the eggs in water,
Right. Yeah.
Rivers and stuff.
Yes.
And actually, there's a great deal of excitement in the insect world about this huge swarm, because
You speak for the insects, do you?
Yes. No, I mean in the human world that is
Yes, interesting. At the entomological world, I think, yes.
entomological world.
Community.
Yes. Because mayflies have always been a harbinger of the pollution levels, the river health.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How you know all this stuff, or you just reading?
Well, because this is a big thing locally. When the mayflies began to become a more common sight around here, it was
that the water was getting more pure. So, believe it or not, the old timers say this was nothing. I mean, so even though it's better, it's nowhere near. They say, why, back in the day, we had to use snow plows to remove the bodies of the mayflies from the highways. They were 3 feet high in places. Got it right here in the Wall Street Journal. But then they slowly began to disappear because of pollution. And now the fact that they're showing up on radar like that is really, really, really good. Didn't cause any deaths, but of humans, but did cause a pretty bad car accident or two. As they blanketed windshields, people couldn't see. They also congregate around light, so the streets became very dark. All the street lights were blackened.
Yes.
And the roadways became slick because I guess mayfly guts is slippery.
So I'm curious, did when this radar thing happened, what did it, when it started, what did it look like? Did it all of a sudden just appear, or
I have no idea.
Did it come sweeping down from Canada?
On Sunday, swirls of green, yellow, and blue splashed across radar screens at the National Weather Service. The Weather Service in La Crosse said, well, what the fuck is that?
Did they know? Did they have any sense, the radar watching professionals?
I have no idea. Look, talk to Andrea Gallo, who wrote this for the Wall Street Journal. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that. Yeah. But you're right. Mayflies, why do they call them? Maybe they used to before the pollution. They used to get their act together earlier.
I think they did in some places.
Right. Okay. So that was that.
I thought it might be a plague or something like that.
No.
Like in the Old Testament.
No. Oh, yeah. Well, it would seem like. I mean, of course. And then you realize that that's how these stories
On the other hand, you're here, so they've been letting Jews go from Wisconsin for years, now that I think of it. No, so that doesn't make any sense.
No, they were always after the firstborn males.
Ah, yeah, sure.
Yes, but the fact is my brother made
They're
it
welcome
out.
to mine. Yeah.
All right. So, I don't know. Pick one. Here we go.
I'll just pick one at random.
Wait.
Oh, okay.
I gotta fan them out.
All right. I'll close my eyes. You know what? This is almost as exciting as being the person who picks the ping pong balls out on the daily number drawing. Here we go.
I don't have them all here.
Okay. This is just good television right here. We're seeing. Okay. This one.
All right.
What? I picked the wrong one? Then you pick it.
It's okay. This is about the fact that there was this audit
Yes.
of our wonderful Department of Environmental Protection, which I have told you under Republican regimes becomes the Department of Environmental Pollution.
Or instead of the DEP, it becomes the DERP. Derp. The derp.
Okay. So the Auditor General did a very, very thorough, look back actually since 2009 all the way up to now to look at whether or not the DEP was doing its job.
Right.
Guess what?
Answer, no.
No. Although it took 275 pages to say that.
Yeah.
But the answer is no. And he says it's totally underfunded. Huh. Yeah. Now, I wonder how that happens. You don't think that has to do with Republicans in the legislature, do you? You see, if you underfund regulatory agencies, they literally can't do their job. There are not enough people. They're understaffed. And listen to this. Their infrastructure is like a joke. They barely have computers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's beyond belief. If you were to So, the reporter for the Post-Gazette used the I like this adjective. You don't see it a lot anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
Called it a withering
that's a good
review.
one.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
And it is. So it says they're essentially not following up. They're this is because of all the drilling now. They got a lot more work to do, right?
Yeah.
They ain't doing it.
Yeah.
And
they're not notifying people. That was the one that bothered me the most.
The fact that, so if your water has been contaminated, chances are the DEP ain't going to tell you.
Yeah.
Well, it's just beyond.
We should point out too. This is not just
surprising.
limited to. It's also not just limited to oil and gas. There's just a story the other day about longwall mining procedures as well. Another extraction technology that they basically lop off part of a layer of earth where all the coal is, and then everything on top of it just goes punk and drops down 3 feet or whatever, and a lack of proper procedure there as well.
Beyond
so
belief.
Yeah.
Or not. I mean,
that's the thing. That's the thing. Is so unsurprising, right?
No,
I mean, if you had
to expect it.
Yeah, if you said to us 4 years ago, so do you think that Tom Corbett's Department of Environmental Protection, given that Tom Corbett's largest campaign contributors were Marcellus shale drilling companies, and that he's a Republican with a pro-business agenda, and blah 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 blah? Yeah. What kind of enforcement would you expect from the DEP? I think we probably would have said. Not the best.
No, not much. And in fact, we would have been correct.
Yeah.
So of course, the governor's office and the DEP say this report is.
That's how it used to be, not how it is now.
That's not how it is.
Yeah.
So whatever. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that. Okay. Here is a weird one. Now, I saw it in the Post-Gazette, and it just was this little thing.
Yeah.
And then I saw it in the New York Times, and it was a slightly bigger little thing.
Okay.
And I thought, well, it's bigger, so it'll tell me the question that obviously arises when you read it.
Okay.
It did not tell me the answer to the question that obviously arises when you read it.
I can't see what it is, so what is it?
It is about, do you hear about the doctor who killed the patient?
Yes.
Well, I know that happens.
On purpose, yeah.
Yes, on purpose. This is a psychiatrist.
Right.
Who one of his patients came in with a gun and apparently fired not too well because he missed the doctor. But the doctor, it turns out, the NRA types will love this.
Yeah.
The doctor, it turns out, had a gun.
Yeah.
He returned fire.
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing. It says here, all the story is about is investigators believe the doctor acted in self-defense. They quote the DA, blah, 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 blah. They quote the fact that this guy, the patient who had psychiatric problems was taken into custody. Both the doctor and he are, don't have, terrible injuries. And then as an offhand remark, not only in this one, but in the longer one in the New York Times, they say a 56-year-old female caseworker was killed.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed that too when I saw that.
Well, then what the... And wait a minute. So the two guys with the guns are alive. I'm very happy. The woman, the
Right.
totally innocent woman who had accompanied the patient in, is dead.
Right. And she
And
gets
it is-
second billing, as it were. Yeah.
Well, they don't even tell you anything.
Yeah.
Here's my question. Who shot her?
Yeah. Oh.
Well, isn't that the obvious question?
Yeah.
And here's my sense. If she came in with the guy and the guy shoots the doctor and the doctor shoots back, my guess is the doctor killed her.
Yeah. Hard to
I
say.
don't
They may be
know.
trying to figure that out. There may be a
Wouldn't that? But that's how. What
Right.
kind of reporting is
right,
that?
right. I mean, the sad thing is, right? It almost seems like they front loaded the novelty of it, which is
The
hey,
doctor had
shoots
a
patient.
gun.
It's like dog
Right.
bites man or whatever.
Right,
you know?
right. And but the so for the NRA types who think they would like that story,
Right,
wrong.
right.
Because, in fact, a totally innocent person was killed. And somebody somewhere, I don't know if it was a cop or a DA, said, it's a good thing the doctor had the gun, otherwise
Right.
many more people
Right.
might have been killed.
Isn't that amazing? That's
Well,
a win.
I don't know. What do you mean?
That's a win. That from their calculus, that's a win.
As for the
system
56-year-old
works.
woman, yeah, what? Who killed her?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know how anyone reading that doesn't immediately, well, what? Wait a minute, someone is dead?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Maybe because it's
I mean,
a
the sad
woman,
thing
it
is,
doesn't matter.
well, no, I think my guess, honestly, is that it's so common now. It's just become so common, and only one person died. I mean, I hate to sound cynical about this, but it wasn't some shooting spree or whatever. There was just one victim.
Generally speaking,
In the United
gotta-
States of America,
it doesn't
that's
mean- it
just,
doesn't-
that's the dog bites man part.
That's right. It doesn't register on the radar. As a matter of fact, if somebody shoots 3 people, I don't think it registers
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
What do you have to get?
Yeah.
At least 8, 9? I don't know. And the number keeps going up before it makes a front page.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of radar. Tim,
Also, it helps if the people involved are white. That's always. that
oh,
always
heck
puts
yeah.
In, yeah.
Heck yeah. But generally in these shootings, they are white because it's
victims
rare
and- yeah.
that these mass killings are African American or Hispanic perps.
Right.
Rare.
I meant the victims.
Yeah,
That's who I was
but
thinking
you know,
of, but
you
yeah.
kill your own.
I mean, for example,
right.
there was a series. There were several people were shot just last night, right, in North Braddock.
That's
or was
right.
that the night before? I can't remember.
It was but those were all black
yeah,
guys.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
doesn't
So
count.
nobody cares.
I mean,
It's
come
just-
on.
exactly.
Just
Exactly.
gunplay, the
Yeah.
usual, the norm.
Yeah.
Forget
Yeah.
about it. Okay, speaking of radar, Tim writes, mayfly hatches on Lake Erie have shown up on radar.
Well, there you go.
Okay, there you go.
Shows what we know.
By the way, I didn't say where this hatch is believed to have come from the Mississippi,
Is that right?
the upper Mississippi, which would be La Crosse. Okay. You don't think of Wisconsin and the Mississippi in the same.
We don't, but
No,
that's a
but-
big old river.
Man, that's a big river.
Just keep rolling. Thank you, Gus.
don't know nothing. Okay, so if you think your voice doesn't count,
You're right.
you're wrong.
No, you're right.
You're right. They're wrong.
No. Just go ahead. You tell them what the story is.
We're talking about the Lyfts and the Ubers and all those guys, and the fact that the PUC has, said you can't do it, can't do it. And the PUC was never in their history have they been deluged with so many outraged letters from the people, the little people. And it got their attention. In fact, the congressman, Mike Doyle, said he had, it's the second biggest bunch of letters he's ever received on any issue. I forget what number 1 was.
No, that was Wayne Fontana, the state senator, and
You sure?
yes,
Okay.
pretty sure. Because it tied with the other one was the Pittsburgh Penguins back in 2007.
That is
he
correct.
actually told me he thought there was more response
To the
than
Penguins?
to
Uber
Raj
and
to
Lyft.
Pitt-
Okay.
yeah.
So it's not like they've been given a green light.
So to
It's-
speak. Yeah.
It's an odd kind of.
Well, Yeah, so the deal is there's this outstanding question out there, which is about sort of the insurance stuff, and I actually think this is sort of interesting.
It's a legitimate.
It is legitimate, and I also feel like I'll be very interested to see whether Lyft and Uber actually live up to the conditions the PUC imposed. One of those conditions is that the rideshare companies notify the driver's insurance company that he or she is now providing this service using the car that they have insured.
Well, so that guy's insurance is going to go way up.
Well, no, I mean the theory is, and this is the part that's it's nominally it should not, because they're supposed to provide coverage for any time he's actually providing service. I had asked, because I knew this was an issue when they had this big press conference a week or two back here downtown. I asked the guy from Uber. I said, the insurance folks want to be notified. That notification provision was not in Fontana's bill. What do you think about that? And he pretty much kind of hedged on it. Like, I'm not sure that, Lyft and Uber right now have a good thing going in that it doesn't seem to matter whether they follow the law or not.
No.
So I'll sort of be interested to find out if going forward they actually meet the requirements spelled out in the PUC.
Well, there were a lot of requirements that are spelled out that they have to do.
Yeah. And I'll be interested to see what happens.
And if they don't bother, I would think to do them, I would think the PUC would not green-light them.
And we see what a powerful difference that makes to the.
And we'll see. I've been saying, and we've been saying, that don't kid yourself. Government doesn't make the rules anymore.
Yeah.
Big money makes the rules.
I also have to say, I'm just like, whatever. I mean, this to me, we had people write in about this last time and told us we were wrong because the cab service stinks so badly and these things provide a service.
Well,
and all
it does.
That. So
It does.
Let's grant. Let's grant all that. I mean, I do find it surprising that, like, in the past couple months, I think the Peduto administration has held a couple of press conferences, sent out like a half dozen
seems odd
press releases about it. The Post-Gazette's editorialized about a bazillion times about it. Meanwhile, we just had this agreement between Highmark and UPMC, which seems to be satisfying nothing.
That is
and
true.
yet I have heard zero. I have heard really zero from elected officials about this.
So
I don't know that the Peduto administration has said. And remember, this is a guy who a few months ago, this was issue one for him, right? He was gonna take the fight to Rome off. He was gonna try to broker agreements on all of these fronts, on the labor issue, on the Highmark issue, on the nonprofit tax payment issue, and yet that is just like dropped down a giant well, and it is surprising to me, how UPMC has just like. Whoosh,
You're so
disappeared
right.
from the scene. And some of that is because the the thing with the workers is before the National Labor Relations Board, and everything sort of is waiting around for those guys to come down with a ruling. But this other stuff, here came Corbett with this big thing that he was going to do, and it's really this kind of half-assed, half-assed thing, and nobody really knows what it means. There's stories about it in the past few days. What does it mean for Community Blues subscribers? The Post-Gazette had a story about it this week. We had one today. We had one a couple weeks ago. The Tribune Review had a story yesterday or the day before. What does it mean for transplant patients who are currently, they've had the transplant, but they're still, because you got to really, the anti-rejection drugs and all that stuff. Yeah. What happens to those folks? And there's just sort of a lot of anxiety about it. And it's just, but by God, our streets are now safe for billion-dollar hedge funds to operate ride-sharing services on. What a victory for the proletariat. I'm just a little cynical about it all.
No, but it's a great point. Because that so-called deal that the governor brokered is a bunch of crap. It doesn't in any way change really anything that UPMC intended to do in the first place. And it's so vague in so many areas. Supposedly they're going to come out in the next few days, aren't they? With some kind of a clarification.
Next week, I believe, yes. A transition plan.
Well, but there again, I will repeat. You think government has any government has power over you and me and the likes of him. But does government have power over the likes of UPMC?
Right. And let's be clear, what happened with Lyft and Uber is an example of the kind of democracy that we have in America, which is a fairly well-heeled pair of corporations, had a deregulatory agenda.
Correct.
That was supported, of course, by Republicans.
Yes.
Tom Corbett's not going to be against something like that. What the hell does he care? And is supported locally as well, and that's fine. I mean, I understand the case for that. But let's be honest about how this really worked here. Is this was not a triumph over the little guy over the corporate hegemony. This was two corporations who happened to benefit in this very specific isolated instance.
Right.
And so now, and somehow we're supposed to sort of feel liberated by it. And I appreciate that there are people who are liberated by it because they don't have to drive home drunk from the South Side or whatever. I look forward to your complaints when Lyft and Uber are charging you 3 times as much because they're driving when you actually want a ride as opposed to any other time during the course of the day. And then we can talk about this victory for the little people.
And don't you forget it. Because, in fact, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's already happening to some extent. They already do have surge pricing.
They have surge pricing in New York. And I know that is it the governor there, the city, they're saying, hey.
Yeah.
We don't allow gas stations to gouge during after a hurricane. What makes you think we're going to let you?
Conversely, there are pop machines, right, that are digitized to increase the price they charge for a can of pop when the temperature goes up. Like that's legal in most places.
What?
So, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Here in Pittsburgh?
I don't think they have them here. I've never seen them here, but they're around. They're out there.
As soon as the temperature gets...
yeah, there's just no whoop, 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 whoop. That's the genius of capitalism.
God.
Supply and demand. Do I have to explain this to you liberals?
No. God almighty, rapaciousness. Unbelievable.
Can I tell a funny story about that just because?
Please do.
So we were on our honeymoon. My wife and I, we went to Chichen Itza. We were down in Mexico, and I'm a big... Oh, do we have a call? Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Wrong phone.
Oh.
Wrong phone, guys.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, that's a lie.
Tell your story.
Okay.
What?
Oh
Hello?
yeah. So anyway,
Right.
so we're down in Chichen Itza, and they have which is in the Yucatan Peninsula, and they had this big rainstorm come through, and it's like jungle type rain, and everybody's fleeing for what shelter they can find. And there's not a lot, but there's a big tree near the Pyramid of the Moon. And we're all kind of...
Excuse me,
tree.
near the Pyramid of the Moon?
Yeah, or it's the sun. I can't remember which.
I don't know.
It's a big, ziggurat.
It's a big pyramid.
Yeah, big steps.
All right, okay.
So we're all these tourists are standing under there, and there are some people because all around the place there are people.
I take
Mexicans
it there was
selling
not
stuff.
lightning. I just want to say that being under a tree is not a good idea. Okay.
No. Anyway, there's a big TV antenna on top of the pyramid, so all the lightning goes out.
right.
I'm just kidding. So anyway, we're all there, and there are Mexicans who are there who are selling stuff, and there's a kid there selling ponchos.
Sure.
And he goes, and there's an American couple next to him, and he says, "Poncho, $5 for the poncho." This American guy says, $3 for the poncho. The rain's coming down. The kid goes, $5 for the poncho, $5. And the guy says, no deal. 2 minutes later, the rain starts to tail off. A minute after that, it stops completely. The kid turns to the American and he goes, "Poncho, $3.
And the American
says,
said,
"Nope."
nope.
It was just like that.
There
to me
it
is
is.
just the perfect illustration of market dynamics.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's the same thing, except now it's going to be drunks on Carson Street, $5.
Oh, God.
Anyway.
All of a sudden, I don't want to talk about any of this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just, it is all awful.
Oh, you were so excited, though, at the start.
I know. Why was I?
I don't know, because you just had a lot of stuff to get off your chest.
Yeah, right. But all of a sudden, I just realized that it's also...
Oh, God.
I can't take it.
And we can't go to a break today.
Oh, yes, we could.
Oh, we could. Oh, okay.
I just don't think that, we should pretend...
that this show produces
that
any
we have
revenue
any,
whatsoever.
Yeah, commercial sponsorship.
Aren't you supposed to not call attention to that fact?
I suppose so.
Yeah. This show's honest, by God.
It's
not always right, but it's honest.
No, I just think the sales staff is derelict.
Well, that's on a good day.
We're not in this for the money.
Nope.
Nope.
And it shows.
And it shows. That is true. We are not. We have a calling. We are passionate about what we do. And that is payment enough. Okay, so so there's this court in the D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Made up of I don't know, but there were these two decisions that came down regarding the Affordable Care Act, and one went one way and the other went the other.
Right.
The one that went the other said that the Affordable Care Act did not allow the federal government to offer subsidies to people buying insurance in states that did not have their own insurance marketplace.
Yeah. That would include
Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
The other court, hearing the same kind of thing, said, "Nah, that's bullshit," and they were like unanimous, saying, "No." The court that found this, that the law was not allowed, was made up of, it was a 2-1 decision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, quick. Now, what do you think?
Who was the president who appointed those?
Two.
Which presidents? Yes.
All right. Well,
Here's a hint.
Huh?
Here's a hint. They
Oh.
both had.
I can't do an elephant noise.
My kid can.
All right. That doesn't sound any different than mine.
whatever.
All right, so forget it. Silly, stupid, not even that funny.
They were-
So, yeah.
Not only that, I think they both had the same last name, and it wasn't Adams.
Well,
they were
I guess
both
that
Bush
would be,
appointees.
yes.
Bush the first and
Yes.
Bush the second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but of course, no difference between Republicans and Democrats never makes a bit of difference. Never! And if you think it does, you're an idiot! Okay, so, this will not stand necessarily. This will be appealed, and is and has, maybe already. And it will go up and up and up, and eventually it's going to end up where?
Yeah.
At the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you take if you look, there's 3 judges on the one and 3 judges on the other. 2 judges said that the law didn't allow for these subsidies. 4 judges did. If you put
Yeah.
right. And nothing seems political about those 2. Nothing, of course. If, however, the Supreme Court, which is never political either, were to find that that decision was correct, you know what that means? It means that millions of people, who, for the first time maybe in their lives, have health insurance because of the Affordable Care Act, will lose it.
Yep. You know, and the irony of this to me is, which of the states
Oh, I know. Of
are
course.
most hurt by this?
Here.
Go ahead.
I got numbers.
Okay. All right.
The vast majority of people who bought health insurance qualified for some form of some measure of subsidy, including, get this, in the states, all controlled by Republicans, in the states controlled by Republicans who refuse to set up their own marketplace so that the federal marketplace was in effect, 87% of the people who signed up receive subsidies.
Yeah.
And why is that? Let me tell you something. If you look at where poverty in this country is, all you got to do, it's just a perfect fit. What states have Republican governors? and Republican legislatures and vote.
Ours.
What are the red states? What are the red states?
Yeah.
And that's where most impoverished Americans live. And this will further. What I want to know is why wouldn't people? What are people nuts? If they see that if you live in a blue state, you can have some measure of a quality of life. You might have a higher minimum wage. You might have a better social network. Wouldn't there be a mass exodus from? There won't. There won't.
No.
And
why is that?
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think, what you've seen in recent years is a sort of demographic self-sorting according to sort of communities of affinity or interest. So people move to places where they stratify politically. You're more likely to live in a conservative is more likely to have conservatives as neighbors now. And I think you're seeing just sort of a massive, it's called the big sort. I've heard that called.
Right. So remember when the Supreme Court supposedly said that the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, was constitutional. Mm-hmm. But they had a few little caveats. And one of the caveats was, well, they cannot tell the states that they have to expand their Medicaid insurance.
Right. Optional.
That will be optional. Mm-hmm. And right there, a lot of, again, very prescient and smart observers of the Roberts Court said, this is how, Roberts is no dummy.
Yeah.
This is how he does it.
Yep.
Looks like all the idiot liberals are, yay, we won. Oh, no. Now you're seeing this play out. You're seeing it play out.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court says, no, you Republican states, you don't have to help these poor people. Yeah. And then lo and behold, so the feds come in. And now they're saying, this other Republican court says, no, the feds can't come in and save them.
Yeah.
Depending on what state you live in, it will determine whether or not you can have health insurance. So what the Roberts Court has set in motion is what we're seeing happening and what ultimately might become a totally stratified, the big sort continues, where the Affordable Care Act turns out not really to be a federal solution at all. It just put a structure in place in which state governments will decide whether or not they're right.
And will do so in ways, and this is maybe I think the thing that's toughest for us on the left to understand. They will do so in ways that are self-defeating to the interests of their own citizens, and they will be rewarded for that.
But that's what I don't get.
Hey, look at the guy here. This to me is fascinating. The case where the judges, this Halbig, I think, is the case that the majority went against the subsidies. That plaintiff, Halbig himself, was from West Virginia, and his big gripe was, you're forcing me to buy insurance, and I think with the subsidies, he would have to pay for a year's worth of health insurance.
Nothing.
$21.
Okay, he'd rather have to spend $5,000 or something. What?
It's for the principal.
Oh yes.
And I have to say, on some level, as crazy as that is, I do have some weird respect for people this willing to sacrifice their own material self-interest.
Do you really think they've thought it out?
I don't know. I think they thought it out to the extent that they decided I would rather, my ideas of self-reliance or whatever are such that I would rather take a chance with my own health and whatever than actually do something that's inconsistent with my beliefs, as skewed and messed up as they think they are.
However, here's a possible. This was an earlier piece in the Wall Street Journal.
We have a call, apparently.
We do?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi.
Morning.
I just wanted to say that, did you see this Paul Ryan where he wants a block grant, food stamps, and all this, the help for the poor people?
Yeah.
So, what they're going to do? They're going to do like it did on this Medicaid, and those people aren't going to get any money.
Yeah.
Or any kind of subsidy.
Yeah.
That's right.
These
Ryan wants
bastards, you can't. Their way of thinking is unbelievable.
They want Ryan. Yeah. Anytime you see Ryan, next to a poverty program, you know exactly what it's going to be. Let the states figure it out.
Yeah.
But again, we're going to have a United States in which there are these states where the poor are really like destitute.
Yeah.
And other states where they are not. And I'm sorry, I don't see how that doesn't eventually lead to a migration.
Maybe. But hey, they'd be happy for that.
Another
Why?
thing I
Those are
wanted to say
takers.
is-
Get
Those
rid
are
of
the
them.
takers.
Send them to the blue states.
On the other hand, if you did this state by state, then we, those of us, the blue states pay every tax dollar we put in, that you put in, more of it goes to these red states than ever comes back to our states.
Right.
The blue states.
Right.
So maybe we want it that way. Then we'll keep our money and help our own and screw everybody who lives in those godforsaken Republican states.
That's the Tea Party
And
idea.
another thing, the states that increased their minimum wage, their economies are doing better,
Yeah.
Yes.
and they're hiring people.
Yes.
So stick that in your pipe and smoke,
Yeah.
the Republic, because they're full of shit.
They're so full of shit. It's beyond belief.
So what can you say? They're dumbasses. That's all I can say.
You got it
Have a
right.
good day.
Thank
Oh,
you.
you
You
too.
too. They're dumbasses.
Well,
You said it.
I actually think the Republican politicians are quite smart because clearly they figured out a way to pull this off. Clearly they figured out a way to make people vote again to prioritize this sort of ideological mindset
Maybe,
over
though,
their own
up to a
self-interest.
point.
Maybe up to a point, but it's rolling for them now.
Okay. So here, though, this Wall Street Journal article says if the courts, like the Supreme Court, ultimately back this decision by the D.C. court,
Right.
which said that Americans can only get these credits and the subsidies if their state has its own, if they live in a Democratic-controlled state, except for Kentucky.
Yes, isn't that interesting?
Go figure. It says here it could well be that officials in those states may come under pressure from the public
Yes.
to set up a marketplace.
Yes.
And that is if the people wake up.
Yeah.
So
That's the key, right?
right.
Yeah.
And again, you saw what happened when people wrote letters to the PUC about Lyft and Uber.
Yes. When there was a bipartisan consensus to do it anyway. I mean, right? This is wasn't there just a paper out a couple months ago that said we essentially live in a plutocracy because people sometimes the public. It's not that the public never gets what it wants. It's that the public gets what it wants when its interests are closely enough aligned to the very, very wealthy. Yeah. So there you go. That's Lyft and Uber. This other thing is an open question, but I do think I'm surprised, and I'm sort of working on a piece about this now for next week's issue is the extent to which. Governor Tom Corbett has gone on the air facing this re-election thing. His rival is always millionaire Tom Wolf.
Right.
And I find this so fascinating.
I know,
the extent to which a Republican candidate who is bankrolled by the most special of special interests and pursues policies that are adversarial to the interests of working people is going to wage a class-based attack on Tom Wolf. And you know what? If he gets away with it, we deserve to lose everything that we have. I mean, that is democracy to me. If it means anything at all, it doesn't mean Lyft and Uber get to drive on the streets of Pittsburgh. It means that Tom Corbett goes out because he's just simply running such a game on people. It's not even funny.
Okay, so again, just so you understand, the Affordable Care Act was intended when it was envisioned to pump federal dollars into the poorer states.
Right.
Where lots of people did not have insurance.
Right.
And the Obama administration knew full well that those states were overwhelmingly Republican.
Right.
But this court ruling, if upheld, as we said, would probably leave only richer Democratic states with those federal dollars and with broad insurance coverage. And because now that insurance rates have significantly been reduced in states that have these exchanges.
And let's not forget Medicaid expansion.
And
in
Medicaid
Pennsylvania,
expansion too.
Yeah.
So if this is allowed to stand, and here's some guy at a research institute that says, if this is allowed to stand, what we will have with the Affordable Care Act will essentially be health reform for Democratic states.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if the Democrats understand how to play this, and if people talking to family members in these states, people talking to people, doesn't start where it becomes clear to anybody that you'd rather live in a Democratic state, and if you don't want to move, then vote the jerk Republicans out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why shouldn't that necessarily?
Because, I mean, I agree with, I mean, to me, that's the logical thing, right? But what I think we've seen
it's not logical.
in
It's
American
emotional.
history is that politics do not work according to a rational calculation of self-interest. It works according to appeals to
emotion
and whatever else. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. It is remarkable. I mean, it is still remarkable to see this playing out. To see, I mean, a Mitch McConnell, I mean, you mentioned Kentucky, and I think this is a good example. That's how it used to be. You could at least expect a baseline level of responsible hypocrisy, right, from a Republican politician. They would rail against government spending while taking their farm aid. For example, they would denounce those takers in the city while reaping.
That's right.
And that used to be true. I mean, I think what's interesting now is, I mean, again,
standing on
this
principle.
Tea Party sort of thing, the part that you kind of have to respect about it is they are absolutely willing to cut off their own nose.
To impoverish themselves
for this cause of making the wealthy richer. That's a thing they believe in. And so they do it. And the part where I feel like I almost feel kind of bad for Tom Corbett on some level is I think he kind of throws back to that thing. I don't think he's this crazy right-wing doofus. I think he's a terrible politician, but I don't think he's a bad person necessarily.
Right,
but he's caught between this sort of old party and this new party, which is just made up of these crazy people, the Daryl Metcalfs of the world. You know? And I mean, that to me is just, it's astounding. It's astounding to see this happen. I don't think the Obama administration really probably fully calculated the extent to which, because I think as a characteristic of Obama, he's always underestimated the rabid nature of his political foes.
He's so, again, cool and rational and sort of intellect. He doesn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, or he chooses not to for
can't
some
believe
reason
it.
that I can't.
I don't know. Whatever.
Calculate.
Okay, so the city of Pittsburgh, to change the subject, will have spent over $800,000 so far this year.
Yep.
This year is just half over. So far this year, in payments, settlements to injured folks who were injured by Pittsburgh police.
Yep.
Closing in on $1 million mark, and that does not include, there's some pending cases that will definitely push that over $1 million.
Yep.
And this is going up and up and up. I mean, just, we saw Jordan Miles get $119,000 this year. Just last week, a guy on the north side, Anthony Kenny, got $105,000. On and on and on and on and on and on. And the more you see about the cops and the way they operate, the more this is what I end up in disbelief. Now you've got the DA telling the cops, hey, you guys, you aren't even following best practices here in terms of if you're after somebody and you need some eyewitness testimony, you are screwing up. And there's case after case where the cops arrest somebody on eyewitness testimony, which is totally incorrect, and where they refuse to acknowledge that the poor schmo that they've collared and thrown in jail has an absolutely airtight alibi.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they're a black person, they can rot in jail for a week or two, maybe 3, 4, before their airtight alibi catches the attention of anyone in a position to let them out.
Yeah. These are the distress signals. These are the red flags. This is the stuff that happens when a department is in a lot of trouble.
What is that brilliant, historic, funny quote from Richard Daley, in the 1968 convention, the father of the last Mayor Daley, during the riots? The police are not there to create disorder. The police are there to preserve disorder. Isn't that it? I think I got it.
I had not heard that one,
really?
actually. That's
you haven't?
good. Yeah,
I think that's it. Somebody look it up. I might have that wrong. But the fact that it got a laugh, I think it's right. I think it's right.
Yeah.
That's what we got here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, God help you. If you and I don't mean to tar the whole. Obviously, this is a leaderless department, literally and figuratively.
Yes. Yeah.
And there are, as you have pointed out a gazillion times, if you look at who are the cops that are doing this stuff that costs us money, that harms residents of the city rather than protects them, the same names keep coming up.
Yeah, although I will say the photo array is a different issue. That's a systemic thing.
Yep.
And I'll say too, I think I wrote about. I think the story about it today mentions David Harris, the University of Pittsburgh law professor. I mean, I wrote about Harris in this book of his. Failed evidence a few years ago. How
eyewitness testimony is
it's very often when convictions are overturned by DNA evidence or some other really very strong physical evidence, you go back and you look, and one of the reasons the case went wrong more often than anything else, eyewitnesses. Another one, by the way, is false confessions, which I think is sort of an interesting thing too. Right. But I can recall this is not like a new issue, and Zapala in particular. I interviewed him back when I was writing about this book, and Zapala has been like, kind of on the front end and just saying, look, we've really got to the reason he didn't.
You know what? He referred all of a sudden. Is because there was a particularly, I guess, to his mind, damning story in the Sunday Post Gazette
about a lawsuit.
Yeah. And he said, we can't have these kinds of
news
articles.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. But in his defense, I mean, his office has cracked down on some suburban departments before where he has seen problems of this nature. Why is he doing it now? I mean, obviously the thing with this lawsuit raising these allegations. I mean,
and by the way,
there may also be a certain degree of he's perhaps not as cozy with the current administration as there's some political animus there, I suspect. But I don't care. I mean, the fact is that there is a best practice that this department could be using, and therefore there's a best practice this department should be using, and they are not using it, and they have been adrift. As you rightly point out, because they've been under a chief serving in an interim capacity for now more than a year.
Unbelievable. Their last chief is a convicted felon. Yeah. What a mess.
You really have to, and of course we're in this process, and it's a kind of double-edged sword. On the one hand, the Perdue administration has been pursuing this sort of public input process and proceeding very deliberately, and I understand that you don't want to act out of panic because then you hire the wrong person. But on the other hand,
listen, panic is in the rearview mirror so far you can't see it.
I mean, we're looking at if we're lucky, we'll have a police chief by Labor Day. And we have a story in this week's issue, the issue that's out this week, about this thing that blew up at the Pittsburgh Pride event, where this young woman was involved in an altercation with an officer, and there you have a case of stuff continues to happen.
I got a feeling in that case, however, I'm going to be on the cop side.
Yeah, it could be.
I definitely think I'm going to be. I mean, just the fact that she's facing another hearing because she beat up her mother.
Yeah. On the other hand, I've seen film footage. I've seen film footage of those guys talking, of these protesters talking, and she was there for a long time before anything cooked off. So let's just, we'll see what happens. But the point being, right now you've got this situation and it's just dragging on where there's a rudderless quality to it. And that's the downside.
How long does it take? So what is Peduto could say, hey, light a fire into these people. Hey, get all the video you got. They're like, they got an ad in the classified section of the paper, practically. If anybody had any film.
But this is in our story, and we reported.
Do it.
This is in our story, and we reported as well. He did do that at first. He said, I'm going to have 30 days. 30 days. This officer will be off. He'll be on desk duty. He'll be in the warrant office for 30 days. And we're going to act expeditiously on this. And 30 days came and went a week or two ago, or last week. And
nothing.
Well, yeah, and there shouldn't have been anything. Because if they rush into it, then you get into this situation that we saw a lot in the Ravenstall years, which is Ravenstall says, boy, this looks terrible. I'm firing this guy or I'm acting something. And then guess what? Down the road, the judicial process works its way through, and suddenly you don't have the conviction that seemed like such a gimme. And then the next thing you know, your officer is back on the force and you're paying him back pay. So this is hard stuff to do. It's very hard stuff to do.
By the way, have you seen, I see it all the time when some cop that was involved in a situation here in Pittsburgh where the city ends up paying somebody for what the police did.
Right.
Often you'll see in the article it'll say Officer so and so has left the department and is now with, and name a suburban police department.
Yep.
They just say, well, screw this, and they go, they go over and
where the money's better. The money's often better in these places,
and the work is easier.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think of these? I usually don't traffic in these stories because they're so awful. The fact that these parents are being charged, the two little girls who were killed when the dresser fell on them. You as a harried parent. Criminalizing bad parenting. Where do you come down on this? It appears that the father was in the house when the dresser came down on the girls, and he did not immediately respond. And his reaction, he said, first of all, he was on the toilet. Secondly, he says, these girls, I got 5 kids. There's crash, boom, bangs all the time. I thought, oh, God, what now? And he went and checked as soon as he finished on the toilet, and they were dead.
Yeah.
And the doctors say if he had come immediately, they would in all probability not be dead. So they're going to charge him with what? Reckless, unintentional, homicide, reckless, whatever.
Yeah.
And then because the house was in horrible, they were not good housekeepers, they're going to charge what? The mother, because I guess women are supposed to keep house.
Yeah.
My sense in these cases is, I don't know. I don't believe in the criminalizing. You've got 2 dead children. These parents, however negligent, and they shouldn't be parents in the first place in all likelihood.
But they have 3 other children.
They have 3 other children, but then you let social services come in. And then I don't think, nothing, well, what do you think of these things? I think it's
there's always... Those of us who write columns for a living have to beware of the tendency to take 5 different unrelated stories and make a trend out of them, right? But I do think, you take that with, as tragic as that circumstance may be, and it may be that there's a level of negligence here that we don't fully appreciate.
Anytime a house is in the condition that they say, there's obviously
so there may be facts on the ground. But I would say sort of more broadly, there does seem to sort of be this disturbing sort of trend of people of the state feeling entitled to punish people who are in tough circumstances to begin with. And is it not always the poor, very often the black, but in any case the poor or working class who are subjected to this kind of punitive thing? The most obvious example is the woman in South Carolina who was working at McDonald's. We set up 20 years ago welfare to work and get these lazy, these allegedly lazy moms into the workforce, and then we don't do anything to provide a social support network for them. And there really does seem to be a sort of
the woman who went she's desperately trying to. She's going to school. She's doing this. She's doing that.
She's doing everything she's supposed to do.
And she gets a job interview. She can't find anybody who will take her kid.
Yeah.
So she takes the kid to the interview, and when she goes into the interview, she leaves the kid in the car. While she's in the interview, passers-by see the kid, call the cops, and when she comes out of her interview, she's handcuffed, thrown in jail, and blah, 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 blah. The kid is not dead, but again, damned if she does, damned if she doesn't.
This is really, and of course, we can all say, those of us of a certain age can say, shit, my parents could have been thrown in jail based on this regime. And I think I think this is the flip side. There's this sort of inverse relationship here between the amount of care that we seem to feel a political system. I mean, our political rhetoric is the state doesn't owe you anything. It's all self-reliant, and as a result, we punish parents.
Right.
That's the self-reliance now. Is the state does nothing. It doesn't take a village. Screw you. And you then have this. Well, the state's obligation is to punish parents for not doing everything that they're supposed to do absolutely perfectly. I guess we have a call.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, superficially, on the face of it, I would agree with everything you just said about that woman. But Lynn and Chris, if you were in that same situation, what would you have done?
Which situation are we talking about? The South Carolina one?
She had all the jobs, welfare to work. She had to go for a job interview. Couldn't find anybody to watch the kid. What would you have done?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's pretty
bring them into the lobby.
Let them in the car.
Yeah.
But taking a kid into an interview is probably not going to get you the job either.
Well, but what's better? I mean, I'm sorry, but I feel for her, and she's in a tough situation, but that's just stupidity.
Okay, let's agree that it's stupid. For the sake of the discussion, let's agree that it's stupid. I mean, isn't the issue that she's also in a really tough situation? Yeah. Do we then decide that the cure for the stupidity is to sanction this woman by sending her into the criminal justice process? Is that the answer? Is that the solution? Do we criminalize dumbness?
Yeah. I agree with everything you're saying, but in a deeper analysis, then what is somebody going to sit her down and say, listen, well, you can't. I guess they say you can't legislate against stupidity.
Yeah. Right.
But
most people I know would run the risk of not getting a job by taking the child in, or taking the child into the office and asking one of the office workers.
It's tough because most of the people,
wherever she was interviewing, to watch the kid while she goes into the interview.
I hear you.
Leave him in the car.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. I want to say right here and now, I once left my kid in the car.
Yeah. Windows down or windows up?
I can't even remember. It was at a CVS. I was running in to get something. I left him in the car, and so put me in jail too.
And I mean,
how old was he?
Well, he was in a car seat.
Yeah.
Hey, and I once here's something else I did. And once we were at a gas station, and I was pumping gas, and he was maybe about yay high, 3.5 feet or something, and I wanted to show him how you pump gas, and he came out with me, and his face was like right up, he was like this, and some woman comes up to me, get that child out, he's breathing in fumes, what are you doing, you're not blah blah blah. And I remember feeling embarrassed and also wanting to slug her. But there's so many people who know everybody else's goddamn business.
Especially
I'm sick of it.
Especially when it comes to parenting. I find
there's
a
little bit of a difference between
and also I was
leaving a child in a car.
I've done it.
I mean, especially
and I was
nowadays,
a single parent.
All you hear about.
And hey,
I mean, they go on and on about leaving kids in cars. Don't leave the kids in the cars. Don't leave the kids in the cars, and people are still doing it.
All right, fine.
Yeah, I get it. And look, you said if you'd asked your friends, you don't know anybody who do the same thing. The same is true for me. If I asked everyone I know, probably none of them would say that's a good idea. But the thing to keep in mind is, nobody I know
it's
been subject to the kind of and this isn't just my bleeding heart liberal stuff here. I mean, you can talk to neurologists, people who study the way the brain works. The sort of the grinding nature of poverty, of trying to get by and just barely getting by, it changes the whole way your brain is wired. You make more impulsive decisions, you make worse decisions.
You're under constant stress.
There's just a constant and so again, I just don't see I agree with you, bad choice, right?
Yeah.
But what do we do about it as a society? Do we decide to go down this punitive route? And I think this is where we're all on the same page. Do we go on this punitive route, or do we start to think about providing, if we're pro-family,
providing support.
Providing some support for families so parents make good decisions.
Sure.
Okay,
Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
see you guys.
Yeah, but, and I so cannot stand the busybodies. I mean, if you see... a pregnant woman having a glass of wine at a restaurant.
My wife once got the hairy eyeball for buying a bottle of wine that I was using to cook with when she was pregnant.
Even if your wife drank it.
Yes.
I want people to shut the hell up and back off.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm a relatively functional human being, right? My mother, that generation, are you kidding me? They were chain smoking, drinking, blah, 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 blah. Well...
the amount of drinking that you have to do to expose your kid to fetal alcohol system is so...
Everybody, it's like, so we all own women's bodies now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
we own
that's
any
right.
pregnant woman you see when you find yourself tutting. It ain't your goddamn body.
Yeah. And the irony, it doesn't, and I'll say it doesn't even stop after that. That's what we're saying, right?
It doesn't.
It just goes on and on.
Yeah, and it's bullshit, because as a people, we do not, as a community, take care of the least of us.
What we do is we supposedly take care of them by nailing their parents to the floor when they don't do what we think they ought to be doing. That is on the cheap. That is professing lip service to family values in a way that costs you nothing and can cost a poor working class family everything.
Right.
And that's what's that to me is what's so detestable about it.
Exactly. And we will end with Ray. Ray has an email, and I think this harkens back to another subject. He says, Lynn and Potter, typical neocon dyslexia. When they say black people, they should really say poor people, as in black people are more likely to be involved in crime. But when they say poor people, in their hearts they really mean black people, as in poor people take advantage of social programs. The poor whites who support these villains against their own interests are too busy begrudging blacks the same help they need themselves. Assholes. Ray in Lawrenceville, thank you very much.
Always thoughtful.
Always thoughtful. And on that wonderful wisdom, culminating in assholes, we
actually went long today, even without commercial break.
Isn't that something? What does that tell you?
What
does that tell you?
I, of course, won't be here next week. I'm on vacation. I'll be being a terrible parent to my kid.
Good.
Yeah.
You know what?
In fact, he nearly got run over last night due to my
right. You know what?
my negligence.
Leave him in the car. For a little while.
Leave
him in the car.
To Virginia. I don't think we're doing that.
Makes him more independent. And
puts hair on your chest.
That's right. God, and butt out of everybody else's business. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. See you Monday.
Hey, can you...
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.